Have you ever worked with lace before? Or is it something that you really don't know what to do with? Well, today I'm going to show you just how versatile lace can be. So before I get into today's project, I wanted to talk about lace. Now, when you see lace out in the fabric stores, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Maybe an elegant wedding dress. Or how about this beautiful bolero? Maybe when you see lace, you think of lingerie or a very pretty robe. Yes, lace is one of those things that is very beautiful and it can be very delicate. But for some, you may have never tried using it before and have no clue what to do with it. Well, throughout my sewing career, lace is one of those fabrics that I have come to know and love because it is so versatile. And I thought I would start by talking about some of the different types of lace out there. One of the most popular laces in the bridal industry is French Alençon lace. This is a durable needlepoint lace with a thick cording. It will usually have these eyelashes on the edge, and it is very easy to cut apart and use the motifs as accents on a wedding gown. The edge is often used as a trim on veils and works well for a bit of camouflage on a bust line or an accent on the waist. The next lace is a Chantilly lace. It is a soft, lightweight lace that is also very popular for wedding gowns. It is also widely used in lingerie or for robes. It has eyelashes on the edge as well, and you can cut apart the motifs, but it is a lot more delicate when it comes to sewing them on. Next is a couple of embroidered laces. Patterns are embroidered directly onto tulle to create a delicate look. Both of these are beaded and can be used in many different garments. This black lace is another type of embroidered lace that is heavily beaded with the addition of clusters of sequins. I used it when making a mother of the bride gown for a client. You have to cut away the sequins and crush the beads on your seam allowances and use a zipper foot when sewing it together. Eyelet lace is the type that has been embroidered with small cutout holes. I really like eyelet lace and fabrics and used some in my underdress project. Knitted lace is soft and flexible and will usually be the type you find on delicate underwear. This is a mesh tulle lace that is also soft and stretchy. It was used to make a prom dress for a client of mine. And these are just a few types of laces. There's also crocheted lace, filet lace, and a laser cut lace, all for different purposes and application. But one of my all-time favorite types of lace is called guipure lace. This is a stiffer, thick lace where the motifs are connected with bars, which makes it very easy to cut apart. I used this type on one of my blouses that I extended the sleeves on around the neckline to tie it all together. Which brings me to my project. So at the end of my underdress video, while I was filming, I actually picked my next project out of the jar. This one is the gray lace dress. And because what I was working on was a bit overwhelming and I had all this editing to do, I didn't really know how to explain in a quick way what this project was. Let's see. How do I even explain this one? I don't even know. So I decided not to mention it and try to explain it later. Well, it's later, and it's time for this project. So it all started a little over a year ago when I connected with this lady on Facebook Marketplace who was selling a big box of patterns for 25 bucks. She was moving out of state and she was purging her sewing room. And so I was like, wow, what else do you have? Got any lace? And she said, well, she did. She had to still go through a lot of things and she had other people that she had promised things to. And I said, okay, no problem. I'll just buy the patterns from you. And to my surprise, when she showed up at the meeting place, that she handed me not one, but 2 boxes of patterns and a very large bag of beautiful guipure lace for free. Needless to say, I was dumbfounded when I got home because this lace is absolutely gorgeous. And I can't believe that she gave all of this to me for free. So first, let me show you what's all here. There are 5 different trims. There is 3.5 yards of this dark gray wide trim, 3.5 yards of this light gray scalloped trim, 3.5 yards of this gray trim. I will probably trim away the extra at the bottom. There is 5 yards of this dark trim, and 3 yards of this triangular trim. I really like this one. I also have 40 of these gray motifs, 21 of these motifs that look like they came from this trim that got all cut apart, and 36 of these dark gray motifs. There is a bag of these little pieces and just some miscellaneous things. Not sure if I can use any of them at all or not. So here's the plan. I want to make a dress. And so when I got this lace, I went searching on Pinterest, of course, and I found this dress. I'm not a big fan of the collar, but I do like the silhouette, and it seemed like it could be a good potential for this project. Now that it's time to actually make this project, I went searching for some more dresses, and I found this one. It really caught my eye. Love the skirt, but I'm not sure I want to make a dress that has a tight-fitting bodice. Then I found this dress. I really like it. Love the silhouette, and I like the sleeves with the tight cuff. And then I found these two dresses, and I fell madly in love, as they are more my style. I really like the sleeves with the gathered bell cuff, and I like the lace detail around the neckline of this one. Definitely will make them longer, as I don't wear anything that short above the knee. And so I went looking through all my patterns to see if I had anything I could use that would be very similar to these dresses. And I have Simplicity 3833. And I think this is a good silhouette to use for the main part of the dress and the sleeve. And even though it has a seam down the center front of the skirt and under the bodice, those are going to go away once the mock-up gets made and fitted correctly, because then I'm going to take the front and the back apart and the sleeves apart, and I'm going to lay out all of my lace pieces on to build this dress. I also have a very old Simplicity 9935 because it has a nice bell sleeve pattern piece. I also have McCalls 6883. This pattern I was actually going to use for the original idea of the dress, but I don't like the way the sleeves are shaped and it wasn't going to work. But it does have a slip dress pattern in it, which is what I'm going to make to wear under this lace dress. So now I'm going to take these two and make a mock-up and see how this all fits. This dress is rather simple to put together. It starts with the lower front skirt panels, and then the upper front is sewn to it at the center front. Then you sew the side fronts of the bodice to the skirt, and it creates a dart that makes for an interesting front detail. The back has a long dart at the waist, one on the upper neck, and then sewn together down the center back below the zipper opening. Then the shoulders and sides get sewn together. And let's not forget the zipper. Time for the sleeves. The bell part is sewn onto the upper sleeve while it's flat, along with 2 rows of gathering stitches on the crown. The purpose of the gathering stitches is to help ease the sleeve fullness into the armhole for a flat finish. And as you can see, the fullness of the fabric of the crown is above your stitching line, and you only want to remove just enough of the fullness so there are no gathers when you stitch it in place. And I will have to say that I am very happy with the fit of this dress. I actually like the front point detail. This looks very retro. And yes, I only sewed on 1 bell cuff, as this is just a mock-up, which I like. I think it has just the right amount of fullness. I do think the back of the neck is way too high and needs to be cut down a bit. I have plenty of room in it, and it doesn't feel that restrictive in movement. I'm trying to picture this all in lace, which I'm sure may have a bit more stretch to it. All in all, I give it 2 thumbs up. And here's the dress all taken apart. So I'm going to lay out all of the lace to recreate these panels, and then sew it all together to remake the dress. I have a suspicion, though, that there is not enough lace to make an all-lace dress. But I do have pieces of the mesh lace that I've been saving for a very long time that I used in that prom dress I showed you. So my idea is to use the mesh lace for the top half of the dress, like the upper front, upper sleeves, and cut the back piece in half to match the front. Then the rest of it would be in the guipure lace. So first I need to see just how far this lace is going to go. Here's what I've figured out so far. I really like from here down. Really like this. This is the bell sleeve. This matches or mimics most of this. I have enough to make 2 of these bell sleeves. For the rest of the dress, I'm not sure I really like the way this is going. I have enough lace, I believe, that I could fill in all the spaces, but I'm just wondering if it would actually look good with the mesh lace like this, or if this is too dark, because this is black, this is dark gray, and this is gray. To start with, I'm going to make this much. I'm going to sew together the rows of lace here on the machine and put all of this together. What I'm also thinking is, before sewing this gray here, I like this trim that I put above it. Instead of these, I have all of this left. Then it'll really match. But I think for now, we're gonna take this one step at a time, and I'm gonna do this much, and then we'll come back. I've also decided to move the dark gray trim next to this wide strip, and then put the gray on top of it. I think that looks a lot better. Now they all match, all 3, the front, the back, and the bell sleeves. I can go ahead and cut some of this apart. Well, here goes nothing. And y'all, I am not going to lie. Even though I have worked with lace many times before in the past, I was a bit nervous to make the first cut. But after laying out all of the laces, knowing that I do have enough to make an all-lace dress, we sew this together on the machine. Since the wide black trim had some mesh at the bottom, I was able to overlap and pin on the lighter gray trim before sewing it together. I've set my machine to the widest zigzag stitch that I can sew, and for those interested, I'm using a size 11 needle. You don't need a heavy jeans needle to sew these laces together, just a regular sized one that is sharp. For anyone looking to do a project like this, just know that it is a long and somewhat tedious labor of love. It's going to take a lot of patience to put all of this together, especially when it comes to all of the appliques. It's a lot of starting and stopping and lifting the presser foot. One benefit of my commercial sewing machine is that I have a knee lift control, so that this constant lifting and shifting around of the fabric is not such a big pain in the butt as it would be on a regular sewing machine. You will also find with a project like this that pressing becomes very important. Each time I sew a section together, I'm going to press it flat, as the lace will tend to be a little squished or bubbly. This is a heavy cotton lace, and pressing helps to keep it laying flat. This next row of trim is going to get overlapped just slightly when sewing it together. I'm not pinning it, just butting it up against each other and overlapping it. And the process just repeats itself with all of these trims. It is also time to go back to my layout. Okay, so as of right now, this and all of this is sewn together. Now I've been slowly placing pieces together to finish the rest of this and the upper half. I like the layout of this, so what I'm doing is laying this out over top of my pattern pieces. I'm going to stitch the lace together to create one solid panel. My hesitancy about all of this is obviously with pure lace, these appliques that have these bars that connect it. And I like the spaces of that. But when you're sewing pieces together like this, they're very close together and it's very clustered. But I can't do anything about that because this was cut before it was given to me.
2 hours later.
Well, I have finally come up with a plan after messing with this. I took a long break, went for a drive, and now I've finally figured out how to fill this in so it doesn't look so crazy and overlapped. I've got these long pieces here, And then I flipped it around and put the bottom here, cut this part off of here to fill in up here. I took these pieces, cut them in half because then this piece fit nicely in here. And then I turned these sideways, which means pinning it all down and thinking to myself, what is the best way to go about sewing these together so I don't lose the patterning, because this is a whole lot of pieces and this is just one panel. This also means it's time for a bunch of time lapses. So I decided the best way was to sew all of the long appliques separately into the valleys of the gray trim first. Then go back and sew the short cut-off pieces in between each one to lock them in place. After that, just like the trim, the rest of this is the same process of just fitting these pieces together the best way you can without them looking too overlapped and leaving some gaps in between. This project reminds me a lot of a jigsaw puzzle, and I am a huge puzzler. I can sit for hours putting a puzzle together. This just happens to be a puzzle that has no picture to go off of, and why I took things one step at a time and took the time to keep playing with all of the appliques until I got something that seemed very cohesive. When I got to the top, where all these little leaves are, I tried to hand sew them together, but got frustrated right away because my thread kept getting caught, so I figured the best way to finish this was to keep the pieces pinned to the blue fabric and unpin each piece one at a time and sew them together, if that makes sense. Well, that's one panel completed. Only 4 more to go. So far, I have all of the lower front and all of this on the back is completed. Now, the only difference is when the sides come together, I have this extra row versus this across the back. But that's okay. As long as my sides line up, we're good to go. This part, as you know, matches the bottom of the front and the back, but because I put the darker gray through the center, when my arm is hanging down, you will have the same kind of a feel, which is great. I've also decided that for my slip dress that I'm going to make, I'm using the lightweight stretch knit fabric that I use for my underdresses to wear underneath the lace dress. For the top half of the sleeve, I'm sewing the light gray onto the dark gray so there is no seam where the two colors join together. And the process is the same as it was with the dark gray appliques on the front panel, where I sewed the bottom of each one on and then went back and secured them together down the sides of each one. I've also decided not to cut away any of the lace around the crown of the sleeve, as I'm going to overlap the lace onto the bodice so there won't be any seams at the armhole. Well, both sleeves are ready, so I'm going to go ahead and sew the underarm seam together. You're not going to see any of this, so it really doesn't matter how I sew this seam together, but at the top, I'm going to overlap the lace. And I think this sleeve turned out very nice, just the look I was going for. And the lace will overlap at the shoulder, something like this. Now, I don't know what possessed me to need this extra row of light gray lace on the front, where the upper and lower fronts come together. It was probably me trying very hard to get the 2 points to come out just right, being totally blind to the fact that this was going to make the front way too long and not match up with the back. But I guess some things in life we have to learn the hard way. And yes, I removed the strip of extra gray appliques, which worked out just fine because now the front and back will match. I've also decided that it is okay to not have the 2 defined points on the front. I'm just thankful that I figured out that I could basically overlap all of these panels together instead of sewing in seams. I've gone ahead and re-sewed the mock-up back together so I can hang this on the mannequin so I can overlap and pin the sides of the dress together, because that's the next step. And since I'm creating this dress out of lots of pieces of lace, I'm trying to keep it pinned to the mock-up as long as I can so I keep the shape of it. I have never created anything like this before, so it has been a little overwhelming to say the least. But it's starting to take shape, and I really like where this is going and how it's developed. After sewing the sides together this way, I like the look of this better than I would just having a seam down the side. I also think this lace is too busy for anyone to really notice. The pattern's lined up pretty well, and I will cut away the extra that is overlapped when it's all done. Now that the front and back were done, it was time to tackle adding the sleeves and the neckline. I reattached the mock-up sleeves and stuffed them with some batting to mimic my arm so I could pin the sleeves to the bodice. The trickiest part about this process was knowing how much to overlap the lace so that I didn't get the sleeve too tight in the shoulder. It was also a lot of moving and rearranging the lace all around the armhole so that the lace would look cohesive. I figured that if this lace dress matched the mock-up underneath here on the mannequin, that it should fit me. I also knew that these were just lace pieces sewn together and could easily be changed if something didn't fit quite right. For the neckline, I decided to sew on the big swirly applique at the same time that I attached the sleeves. I felt they were a good complement for a finishing look. Sewing all of this together was the most tedious part of this whole project because of how many places needed to be zigzagged, overlapped, or butted up together. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a slow process that will take time. I think overall this dress has taken me a total of 5 days to put this together. And that's okay. I've had this lace sitting in my closet for about 1.5 years, just waiting to become a dress of some kind. I just kept reminding myself that as soon as I was finished with this part, I could sew in the zipper and finally try this on. And even with having everything pinned together, I still ended up with some gaps and places that needed to be overlapped and joined together. I have tried this on and it does fit me well. It just needed some adjustments. I also added an extension at the top to have some seam allowance for the zipper, which I have sewn in, and no, I did not film the process of me doing that. You can see the zipper, but it doesn't really show that much, and I like how the different rows of appliques have lined up. It just needs a bit of pressing. Here's a closer look at the zipper. I'm going to trim away the extra lace that is sticking out on the inside so that it won't show through to the outside of the dress. I'm also going to hand tack the zipper bottom to the inside of the dress for a little extra security. And yes, there are a couple of spots where the zipper isn't sewn to any lace because of the gaps, but it is still secure and won't come apart. And now for the final step, the slip dress. This is a bias cut dress that has a back piece, 2 shoulder straps, and a front. This is very easy to sew together, and since this is a stretch knit, you can sew it together on the serger, or do what I'm doing and sew it together first on the machine, and then serge off the seam allowance. To make the straps, you fold them in half long ways and sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then use a tube turner to turn the tube right side out. If you don't have one of these handy tools, I highly suggest that you get one. To finish off the top edge as well as the hemline, I'm sewing a double 1/4 inch turned hem. I'm also sewing the straps on with a zigzag stitch. Just don't be like me and do all of this before trying it on to make sure that it fits, which mine has turned out to be too big because this fabric is very stretchy. So I'm taking out the extra fabric from the backside, which is a quick fix. Well, that brings us to the end of this project, which means it's time to try these 2 dresses on together to see how they look. Wow, what an adventure this was. So my hope for you watching this video is that it gave you some helpful information and sewing tips when it comes to sewing with lace. And I hope it inspires you to try sewing with lace, as it's one of those types of fabrics that can be cut and shaped in many different ways. My expertise when it comes to sewing with lace comes from my many years of doing wedding dress alterations, and I can show you endless creations and changes I have made for brides. But yes, I am well aware that lace is not cheap, and depending on the kind you're looking for, it can run you $25 a yard or more. My local fabric store has a wide range of beautiful laces, but they are pretty pricey. So you will just have to do some research and looking online to see what type of lace would work best for a project that you're thinking of doing. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button and stay tuned as the sewing madness continues.